picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Welcome back. It is week 2 of the Big E, the 66-inch Enterprise, the Big Kahuna project, and I think I've done the trifecta of noxious smelling things. First, there was the fiberglass, getting that cleaned out. Secondly, was the noxious smell of the nail acrylic, and third is the noxious smell of Bondo. But what I've done is I've taken some of what Elliot has said to heart. Of course, I always do. And I'm reinforcing these pockets, the pylon pockets. And I eventually want to create an entire semicircle here that is solid from here all the way to here. But I first wanted to bury a couple of copper pipes in there so that I could chase wiring through there. Because once I block that off, I'm not going to have access to wiring the back of this. So just want to be able to chase wires up and down. So that's why I did that, and I'm making sure that I have not. I may lose these 2 windows here, but that's no great crime. I just paint those black on the outside. But that gets me, it reinforces this area here, which is needed. Belt and suspenders, even though, just because I can. So I wanted to, this thing, now it's all of a sudden it's gotten very heavy back here, so it doesn't want to lay down. But I'm going to cut maybe a couple pieces of wood here to fill in some of that form so that I don't have to use quite as much Bondo on the bottom end. But getting these pipes, or that's a PVC tube and that's a copper tube, just laid in there so that I can chase wiring back and forth. And I've done it, of course, on both sides. I don't know that I'll need that much wiring, but it does take up some space, so I didn't have to create the whole dam out of Bondo. So we're very warm while it is setting up. So that's what I was doing. Morning, folks. Welcome back. It is Tuesday, and I'm back at work on the Enterprise. I'm redoing some of the windows because I wasn't happy with them. I think I can do them better, and why not? I've got the materials here. I got nothing but time to do it, so let's go ahead and try. All of this is solid rock hard. All this work I did yesterday to solidify these pockets and give me the wire chases. See, look, I can stick a pencil in one end and it comes out the other. Woo, magic tricks. But that's for running wiring. I'm going to cut some wooden blocks to go on the underside of this, and then that will reinforce it from the bottom. But right now I've got these windows out, and I am going to be putting more stuff in them. See, what else have I done this morning? Playing with this idea. This is what's going to happen for both sides. I'm going to stick the the LED strip to this, and as you can see how much it bows out, that'll bring the light closer to the outside shell. Let me stick this on here and show you what I'm talking about. And I'm back. I've noticed that putting just that little bit of Bondo in there has made this side, made this piece weirdly heavy and off kilter. But see, here you can see what I'm talking about. This white shell here is a lot closer to the outside walls while still being far enough away to give me some diffusion. So that's what I'm going to do to stick the strip lighting to that. And I'll do the same, obviously, on the other side. I've also changed my mind about which side I was going to build up first. I'm going to build up this, what you don't see, the starboard side. Yeah, I'm going to build this side. I'm going to build this side here into the armature first, because this is the money side. This is the side you always saw on the show. This is the money side. I'm going to make sure that that is absolutely set and square and straight, and then I will build the other side up to it. But this one I can do all the reinforcing on, because while I have the first half off, while I still have this half off, I can put in extra reinforcing with clear epoxies and things like that. Things I won't be able to do as well on the second side that I can on the first side. I want to go ahead and do it on this. This is the money side. I've got the tiny holes drilled out here. I need to nip some of this to make room. I don't know whether I drilled these holes too far back or whether the hole in the support is too far forward, but I need to alleviate just a little bit of work there. Let's see what else. Playing with the Shuttlebay. Obviously the shuttle doors go in here, and there's a light that goes there that not only lights up this window but also illuminates the back dome here. So I've got LEDs straightened out for that. These warm 5 mils, one's going to go basically right in here, and then I have 2 more that are buried in this piece. There's the holes for them, and then that goes up underneath, and that lights the landing bay lights. That's going to be a little bit trickier to light block, but it's got to be done. So and then that kind of goes on weirdly because they want you to put that on after both sides have been kind of put together. So that's going to leave lights kind of hanging out there until, bare bulbs hanging out until we've got the 2 halves together. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's not happening yet. But here you can see how we're looking down the spine. And this is good and solid, but it could stand a little bit more reinforcing on the bottom. Okay, I'm making the walls to reinforce this pocket. Now this is going to take a lot of sanding. This is just a very rough cut. So it's going to be a lot of sanding and fitting, and then ultimately bondoing in place. But what that's going to do is give me a good and solid pocket for the pylons to sit down into. And it'll end up looking something like that on the side by the time we're done. So there's a lot of nibbling away that has going to have to be done to make that even come close. And a little bit of sanding and working on the belt sander, and you can see that they are, I got to test them against the insert there to make sure that this is far enough down, but I wanted to keep it on the same plane as this opening. But now I can tack these in with Bondo, and I got to cut some wood to fill in this area because I don't want to use all Bondo because that'll just get way too hot. But then I need to drill out for the wiring holes, and then I am ready to epoxy these in place. And I'll do an epoxy just to tack them in place, and then I will Bondo them in a little bit later. But I think I can get most of them in with epoxy. Let me see how well the armature fits. Okay, I've got the dam set up on either side of both of halves. So what I'm going to do now is tack those in place with a little bit of epoxy. And then I got to cut some pieces of wood to kind of jam in there because I don't want to try to fill all that with Bondo. But then I am going to level this off with the Bondo. So there's going to be a bit of Bondoing to it. And bonus points if you're drinking every time I say the word Bondo. So here we go. A little bit of woodworking today on a Tuesday. Okay, kids, I hope you can see these. These are the pockets. This is curing. I'm going to let this cure all night because there is a lot of Bondo in there. So the longer I let it go, the stronger it gets. But there's a whole pocket there, and there's a whole pocket here. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna let these set up, and I'm also working on the internal lighting shells for the secondary hall lights. And you ask yourself, why is Lou's taking so long? Well, because I ordered some LEDs from Paul and they haven't gotten here yet for the warm whites, so I'm kind of stalling until those show up. So I'm using that time to take my good sweet time with this kind of stuff and let it digest. Okay, we're coming close to the end of the day here, and I've let the pockets cure up as much as I could stand before getting back into it. And I've done a little bit of cleanup, and you can kind of see now how everything is looking. This is the superstructure for the lighting, and I'll put another one up here. Just glue it down to that, and that will allow me to run my strip lighting. But before I do that, I need to wire up this hub before I lose access to it. But you can see how these pockets come in contact with these, which should give it all the strength and stability that God's green earth should allow it to need. If those, if I could stand on those nacelles and pull them out of place, I would be surprised. But you see, it's making the back end very heavy now because of all that weight. But that's a good thing. It's going to balance, I think. By the time you put the saucer out front, it's going to end up being balanced on this post. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going back in and I'm replacing some of the windows on the secondary hull that I think I could do a better job with now that I'm done monkeying around and manhandling the side of the piece there. So let's go put in some new windows. Welcome back, folks. It is Wednesday and we are continuing work. We will be for a while on this lovely big old Enterprise here, and today I want to do something a little bit more exciting because I've been doing basically foundation work, and foundation work is important. Anybody who's ever built a house will tell you without a foundation a house will not stand. But it's not the sexiest work in the world. It's not the showiest work in the world. And you know, sometimes I just have to balance. I have to balance things that show results versus things that show no results. And today I think what I want to do is take this off of the armature and start playing with a little bit of the lighting. Specifically back in this area around the Shuttlebay, because I am waiting for my strip lighting to come in from Paul for the general house lights, for the general window lights. But I've got everything I need to do, like this kind of area back in here, and it uses these wee tiny bulbs that it told me to drill a hole that was too big for these wee tiny holes. So I'm going to have to pack that in with some sort of putty or something to take up the space. But I've got the nicely labeled resistors. Somebody's finally figured out how to get me to use bulbs and resistors by, you know, telling me exactly which one is which, because for the life of me I have a blind spot when it comes to reading the little the lines around the resistors. I know that each of those colored lines means something, but it might as well be in Klingon for all I know. So I've got that, and I'm going to continue to replace some windows that I think I can do better if I do them again. So that's what I'm going to start the day with and see how far it goes. But first, let's take this off of the shell. Okay, now that these saddles have had these inserts have had a day to dry and cure, and I sanded them a little bit last night, you can get probably a clearer idea of what it is they are. I need to clean them off because they've got dust all over them still, but it's basically a solid block O. Well, there's wood in there, there's metal in there, there's a PVC pipe in there, which is where this little hole comes from. But it's a lot of Bondo, and what it does is it gives me a good and solid saddle or slot for the pylon to go into. So I'm hoping that will be a gracious plenty, and I won't need to do too much more belt and suspendering to stop those things from splaying out. The goal was, of course, that each of these would cover, each half would cover, and maybe you can see it here better now. There are three pieces, there are three lights, no, there are three pieces of acrylic here, and this, I want to, obviously the center is halfway through the middle one. Let me give you a pointing device. Here's the middle one. So if I can get each side to overlap and meet in the middle, then all is gravy. So what I had to do here was channel out enough so that this would sit in and overlap halfway. And that's the goal that I've achieved. So now I can move these off to the side and concentrate on putting some lights and fun stuff down the center. Now, we're going to be getting dangerously close. I mean, I can wire up these lights. I can't really attach them here. This is where they go on the spine, until I have attached one or the other half of the secondary hull, because it needs something to butt up against and align to. And my job has been, or my plan has been, to get this side done. Basically, I want to get the strip lights in, which I am still kind of waiting for. I need to see how much strip lighting I have now and whether or not I can start on that, or whether I should just wait for all of it to arrive from Paul tomorrow, which is when it's supposed to come, and just be preparing for it today. Maybe that's what I'll do. But I want to be able to attach this side to that with all of the epoxy and screws and railroad spikes and everything else that I'm going to use to hold it in place. And then I can, not only that, once that happens, this will go on, and then I can start working in the shuttlecraft bay and all that kind of stuff, or the shuttlecraft doors. There'll be no bay in it, but the shuttlecraft doors, that sort of thing. And then I can start putting in these guys actually in place. Now there are two. There's only supposed to be two greens and one red. There's a spare red here, so in case I mess that up. But those will go back here, and that's what I'm going to work on. I'm also going to work on putting in the main wiring here, because I need to jump from this post to this junction box. The good news is I also spoke to Ralph yesterday and have lined up what I need to get from him and ordered that. So hopefully that will be coming fairly soon, as far as what circuits I need to get. There's, for all of this complexity of this big kit, I only really need a blinking nav circuit for the saucer. I've got the strobe for the Shuttlebay. I've already got that taken care of. I've got lighting for the Bassard and for the cages and all that kind of stuff. All I really need is his version of a nav board for the navs, and then his remote board, because I want to be able to turn all these things on and off by remote, so that I am not bound by using switches and everything. Since this thing is meant to rotate on a post, I want, basically, it's going to go to here, and then that's going to go to his remote board, and then everything feeds off the remote board. But I need to get power from here to do that. So that's job one, and then we can start playing with tiny lights. Okay, this is how I like to start my day off, with a success. I think that works very nicely. Those are the three spine lights, for lack of a better term. They go right back here in this divot. Let me clean up this work desk for a little bit. They will sit right in here, and they'll sit right in there, and then they'll poke up through the top of the spine there. And I'm going to wait until I've got the spine, or till I've got this wall glued on before I position those. But that is definitely step one to getting to that point. So yay, happy day. Starting to see the light. No puns intended. Of course I'm kidding, all puns are always intended. Now it's a question of I got this wired up so that when the jack comes up through here with power, this board will now be, well, not the whole board won't be activated, but certain connections on it will. Most notably these two. This is the top two. This is my positive, or my negative, and my positive here. So starting to see some progress. And here you can see the circuit. This is straight off of the kit as it came, for the two strobes that go on either side of the rear secondary hull behind the, or next to the shuttle bay. And I think the fact that these are cool whites is really going to stand out from the fact that I'm using warm whites for all over the windows. I think that's really going to make a nice little change. And of course, this has got a adjustment on it for me to change the blink rate. And I can slow it way down to barely coming on. But when I've noticed that the slower it goes, the longer the light lasts too. So I got to find that balance. I think that's about right. I think it needs to be a little quicker. I think something like that. I'll have to check it against an episode, but it's pretty picky. You don't have a lot of, it's either full speed or very slow, so I have to do this incrementally here. That may be closer. But I could start making these connections more permanent as I get ready to seal that right or the starboard side on. And of course this sticks out through the hull. But we're starting to see some progress. Okay, now I'm playing with the lights that go over top of the shuttlecraft bay doors. And there's this little control room window here, which I always thought would be a neat, if they ever did that set, that would have been a neat place to work if you're working on the Enterprise. Just a beautiful shot straight out the back, nice picture window there. And what I've got to do though, because this piece is cast clear or semi-clear, it's not really clear, but it would transmit light. So I needed to tape with the silver reflective tape, just so that when I put this bulb in here, it doesn't reflect light down into the rest of the doors and make that difficult for light blocking. And also there is a doodad here that sits on top, and this lights up that dome, and it is meant to project the light up through it. Now I've got this on a kind of a weak 9 volt, so hopefully it'll be brighter than that. Let me see if I can do this with one hand. That's the dome that sits on top of it on the outside of the hull. That's what you're used to seeing, but this is the guts of what's inside it. And then of course you would see the window on the back side. This would be left open. Of course I'll put a paint mask over that when I am painting the outside of it, but it would shine out through there. And that all gets added into the back, this area here. And I'm just, like I said, I'm filling in things I can work on now while I am waiting for strip lights. Now that I've got this bit wired up, I can put the auxiliary piece that needs to go here, and that will allow me to mount the rest of the strip lighting that goes out here and covers the windows that are out in this area. So let me go ahead and attach those, and we'll be that much further along. Good morning, welcome back, or good afternoon actually I should say. It is Thursday, and oh happy days, my warm LEDs have arrived from Paul at Paragraphics, and this is the strip lighting, the 60 centimeter, I'm sorry, not millimeter, 60 centimeter warm whites. And that's what I'm going to be using to light the inside of the Enterprise. And along with them, I got some connectors, which makes these things just a joy and a pleasure to work with. Let me show you how easy it is. Now, the only tricky thing about this is lining up the positives and negatives. You have the red strip, obviously, and a black strip, which are positive and negative. So you have to check on the strip itself, which sometimes can be tough to discern, which side is positive and which side is negative, and they will only go on the one way. But there you go. No soldering, no muss, no fuss, which is really going to help when it comes to doing these long runs. So let's get started. What I need to do is go rescue one of the halves of the shell from the other room so that I can put it on here and kind of map out where my lights need to go. I can tell you that they need to be up on the top part here. They don't need to be so much down here, but they need to be on the top part here and then on the neck. So let's do that. Okay, I think this is a viable plan of attack or layout for secondary hull and into the neck. Now, I might need to flop them over one way or another once I see which way the positive and negatives are running, because I want to make, obviously I want to make as the connections as simple as possible. I won't be using these new connectors for all of these. Obviously, I can wire a lot of these back, to each other, but it's simply going to make the plugging it into the main board a lot easier. I might start back something like that, and then up through here and then there to there to there. I just need to see which way the polarities run, but I think what I want to do is wire this up and see and test it out, see what needs moved around. I've got everything kind of taped down. There's adhesive on the back of these, obviously, and I will use that and probably some CA to hold the final ones in shape. But what I'd like to do is wire them up, get it temporarily lit, get the other side put in place, and then see which of these might need shifted around a little bit before I attach them down permanently. So let's warm up the soldering iron and get to the wiring. Okay, a quick check-in on stage one. We've got the neck segments all joined together, and now I just need to add it to the body segment, and we will go. Now, a word or two about this wire that I'm using, and I'm gonna apologize in advance. A very kind gentleman at Wonderfest, whose name in the flurry of all of the activity I should have written down but didn't. I am so sorry. Please leave me a comment so that I can adequately thank you for this wonderful gift. He gave me basically a bag full of Cat 6 wiring, which is all of these beautiful pre-stripped, pre-bundled lengths of wire that are working out to be an absolute charm to work with. It's flexible, it's stranded, it's all the things you want in a wire, but it's also nice and small. So that's what I'm using to join these segments together, and then I will plug them in at the end with the big heavy-duty plugs. But again, sir, please accept my apologies. I have blanked on your name. He handed me a bag. It was kind of suspicious. Looked a bit like a drug deal in the hallway at Wonderfest. He handed me this bag of wiring plus a Vulcan shuttle kit, which I am going to treasure. And Lord knows how much stuff I'm going to do to that. But it's working out to be a charm. I knew I was going to be able to put it to use right away. And this is what it's for. So, again, sir, please send me your, or PM me with your, comment me with your name so that I can make sure that when I give the long list of credits for the people who have helped me make this model, your name is bright and shining amongst the rest. But now that I've got the neck done, I can go ahead and get the side done and see how it needs to be repositioned. Okay, forgive the light for being a little bit blown out, but that's what the camera does. I am very happy. Now, these ones are going to be dead because that's where that big block is, and I have not put anything back here yet. But what we're seeing on this side, I am very happy with. Now, this one's a little dim, but I'm taking that as I could drill that out and redo it because I think I got some schmutz in the hole there. But as far as the neck and the bottom, I'm very happy with this. Let me spin it around. If I don't, the weight of it's gonna fall. But you can see how the lights are up against the windows here, and looking down, you can see the light is shining on the inside on that white very nicely. I just have a little area here that I need to build out with this type of white sheet styrene here so that I can light those windows on the shuttle area. But that's just going to take maybe just a couple inch segments to do that. But that's coming along quite nicely. I think we're ready to play with adjust the segments a little bit. Like you can see where they kind of fell out here, and then I can tape down the wiring. But I think we're in fine shape. Fine shape. Let's see what kind of adjusting I need to do here. I kind of like how this is playing out. So, yay! Good progress already being done. I think I can get both sides of this done today very easily. Okay, as you can tell, I've got the port or the starboard side lighting all secured, and I'm ready to do the port side. And this is going to be ridiculously easy because all the hard work has been done as far as the figuring and the placing. All I got to do is cover over this side, and I know that it'll match because the other side is symmetrical. Then all I need to do after that is to come up with an idea for this back cavity here, and I've just taken a plastic tube, cut it in half, and I'm going to do something like this on both sides to attach the lighting, and that should take care of that. So let's go ahead and do that. I've had these lights on for a goodly amount of time so that they can burn in and make sure that there's nothing going to go awry, because I don't really want anything to go awry once I've closed this up. Moderate goal. I want to finish this lighting today, and then possibly tomorrow seal the left and right halves to the armature. Now, I still have all of this room in here to work on wiring, and I have to make myself, sorry, get in camera. I have all of this room here to work on for wiring. So if I bring all of my wires to the front here and kind of lay them in place, all I need to figure out is whether or not that is going to be enough, because I still have to get the boards from Ralph. I'm not worried about the nav board because that's going to be up here in the saucer somewhere, but the remote board I want to put right in here probably, and wire all of my lights to that, or all of my power lines to that. So I need to figure out whether or not that's going to be too restrictive if I go ahead and put these two sides on. I really would like to do that because I could put the, drill the holes and put the screws in and really let that be sealing and curing and healing up over the weekend. That would give me the whole weekend for this thing to be ruminating. So we'll just figure out how it goes. This is where I'm getting into that wildly speculative talk that I have no business doing until I've actually gotten that far. So let's replicate the or mirror the lighting on this side on the port side. Alrighty, I've got both sides now. I've looked at this starship from both sides now, and excuse me, and I've got it lit. Now what I need to do is warm up the hot glue machine, the hot glue gun, and I'm going to tack a lot of these strips down with the hot glue because I don't want them ever coming up, and they might be tempted to do that if the adhesive on the back of the strips gives loose, because that adhesive is notoriously wimpy. So let's warm up the hot glue gun. Okay, may not be pretty, but it does the job. I have just gone over all of the joints with some hot glue, and then about every inch just drew a line just to kind of keep everything in place and keep it down. Here you can see an example, just hot glue there, and then every inch or so just to hold it in place. Here you can see it inch again, positives to positives, negatives to negatives, just to make one big chain, and then up through here, and it ends there. And now I've pulled all the wires back through to the front of it, and I'm going to go get the two sides of the secondary hull, and the last thing we're going to do today is put those in place and light it up and see how it looks. Well, I've got the strobe circuit in place here. While I had the hot glue out, I went ahead and hot glued it down, but I've not got it connected to the rest of everything. And I still have to figure out the exact configuration of the lights for the back of the Shuttlebay. But let me go get the two sides of the shell. Okay, and here's the place where we're going to end it today, looking very sharp. Got all of these windows lit. When I spin it around, I've got all of these windows lit. Everything looks happy and good, with a yay and a holly jolly. And here you can see how the crank for the, I got to put a tiny knob on there for the Shuttlebay. Let me, I might need to push that in a little bit because the Shuttlebay doors might be in the way. I may have to carve out some of the back of the Shuttlebay door to fit around that, because that's in precisely where it needs to be. It's just these will poke out through the side walls. But I may have to, yeah, I probably will, because it sticks out a little bit from the back of this wall. So that's not going to be that big a deal. I mean, that's just a big hunk of clear resin. I can chew out some of that, no problem. But look at that. This is where it starts to get fun, kids. Good morning, folks. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and we are going to be doing big doings today. Big doings. I am readying this armature to accept the the starboard side of the secondary hull today. I left this course overnight, and I looked at it this morning, and outside of picking up some stray hairs of hot glue, everything has stayed in place and stuck. So we're all good with that. Nothing, no major malfunctions overnight. Fired it up. Everything still lights. So we're all good with that. And today I am getting ready to, as I said, attach this secondary. Yes, I got to remember. Right is starboard. The starboard side of the secondary hull. I have marked out on the armature where is the halfway line here. I want to make sure that this is sitting exactly halfway, or that the shell is sitting halfway in, so that the other one will match up to it and it will be perfectly centered. The armature includes this extra long spine piece here, which is great for setting tiny screws in to keep it in place. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to add a wooden block down at the front so that I can push this halfway and glue that down, so that when I attach the armature to it, it will sit in the center. So I need to glue that block in next. I need to get some, I'm thinking mix up a little bit of an epoxy for that. I've got to do one last check on the windows, because I will not be able to get to those again after this point. So I need to make sure I'm happy with all of the windows. And we'll get this thing in place. I need to run a wire chase up to the saucer, because again, I won't be able to get past this point in the near future. So I need to figure out how many electrical leads I need to do for that. And I need to put the electrical leads out going to the pylons, the important pylons. Do both of those at the same time. I'm just going to get, because I am, again, I am waiting for Ralph's board. So what I'm going to do is just have a bunch of stray wire coming down here that I've got to label and, make sure I know what it is, so that when the board comes and I can hook it up and set it back in here. I have checked, and by the time I put the other side on here, I still will be able to get in and out of here with some ease, to make sure that the board can sit in here with no problem. And I think that's where it's going to end up being. It's going to end up sitting right in here. The remote board, the nav board is going to be up in the saucer up in here somewhere, and I don't need to worry about that at this point. But if all goes well, and this is my plan for the day, see the crossed fingers, if all goes well today, I will have the port and starboard side of the shell attached to the secondary hull, and I may even have the shuttle bay area situated. I know I need to get, before I can do any serious work on closing this up, I need to add the last bit of lighting segment for here so that I can add those lights. But that's where we are. Now that I've laid it all out and verbalized it, I realized how much work that actually is, so I better get cracking on it. Okay, here we are. It's Friday mid-afternoon. It's it's mid-afternoon, and I still haven't attached this yet because I'm only going to get a chance to do this once, and I really want to make sure everything has been thought out before I proceed with it. You can see here down the spine I've got holes marked out to drill so that I can tap tiny screws into there to hold it in place. Once the screws are holding it in place, then I will turn this basically on its side and pour the clear 1 minute epoxy into the crease there, into the gap. I'm going to try to dam up some of this. Once I have this permanently attached, I can go in and do this last bit of wiring here. I need to wire the 3 spine lights. I need to wire the shuttlecraft bay lights. I'm sorry, not the bay, but the observation deck light, the thing that goes here. I need to wire that in. There are also the landing lights that go on the fantail. I need to wire those in. And those will all come out to this side and get joined up and neatened up, and then I will shove the wiring up the main body and push it out the front end. Here you can see I have started roughing in the wiring for the pylons or for the nacelle, and that just comes out through there and goes up to the front and kind of hangs out of the front. A lot of this will get cut off and neatened up, but I want to make sure I've got plenty of wire slack. Here you can see the wire that's been run up to the saucer, and it's tied down and it comes out at the front. This is where it gets really ugly, folks, but it has to get ugly to then again turn pretty. So I am just making sure I've got all of my I's crossed and my T's dotted before I put anything permanent in. I always kind of balk at making these big steps right away because experience has proven that sometimes I don't think of every little thing before I do, and I perhaps should. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I need to sand out a little bit more on that Bondo on the inside there to let that base slide over a little bit more. Little things like this. Now I can see that once this is done, once I've got the screws in, I'm going to dam that up with a piece of tape and pour some 1 minute epoxy or slower epoxy. Excuse the tickle. Pour some epoxy in there and let that seal up. Again, like I said, I can pour the epoxy into here once I've got the top screwed down. To me, it's more important that these edges float. I don't want to pull it tight down to the armature because that's going to create an unsightly dimple. I'd rather just have it secured in. I've got tiny screws to put in there. So I'm just, yes, I'm half stalling, but I'm also half making sure that everything is ready to go before I do this. Okay, it's getting late in the afternoon, and this is where I'm going to call it for today. No, I did not get near as much done today as I wanted to, but on the other hand, I feel much better about the work that I did get done. This side is attached. There are no more clamps holding it on. I've got a series of small screws holding it down through here. I've got some epoxy poured in there. It's clear epoxy. It's tough to see. I'm going to let that set up, and this weekend, while you are not watching, I will probably pack that in with some more either two-part epoxy clay or JB Weld or something. to fill this in even more. But that side is on. Now I am ready to get all of the wiring as much as I can done back here, such that I can pull the wire up for you. See, I started to neaten up the wiring, like the wiring that goes up to the neck, and this is the wiring that goes out to the pylon, and that's kind of bundled up inside there. I am working on the lights that will go on the fantail and the Shuttlebay observation dome, and these spine lights. I got to get those kind of put in place and then epoxy around them, or maybe JB weld around them, or maybe the I don't know if it would be epoxy sculpt, maybe, to kind of fit those in place and let those heal or cure in place. But let's do something showy here. Let's get the lights off of... Okay, that is still plugged in. Come on. Let us do up the main ship lighting. Ba-boom. There you go. There is the main ship lighting on the exposed side, and on the window side, or the cleared up side. Now these two windows we have lost to time because that's where the blockage is, and I'm fine with that. Paint those black and no big deal. Kill the overhead light here, but you can see the windows are all lit, and the armature is lit for this side, and outside of this mess going on back here, I am ready to seal up the other side of it. So let's take this off of here and put it on here, so you can see the blinking strobe that will be there. And I need to play with that timing a little bit before I make myself too happy with it. And I think that's going to do it for the second, or the first full week of work on this Enterprise, but the second week really. That's how I will enumerate it on the video anyway. This will be the second chapter. Started doing the actual work, well, I say the actual work, started doing the putting together of things. You know, there's only so much prep you can do, and then you have to start doing the do. And that's what we did today. Got the spine on the starboard shell onto the armature, and that's a big honking step. I think it's going to start picking up speed from here, at least on the secondary hull. This weekend I'm going to be picking at it probably you know, slowly here and there, and get it ready so that I can... Oh, I need to clean. Boy, this thing, as big as this project is, it takes over a room. It consumes a room pretty darn quickly. Next thing you know, you're pulling out tools and, you know, woodworking materials and bandsaws and all that kind of stuff, and you just got to put all that stuff away to keep from tripping over anything. So I'm going to be picking at it this weekend, and I might even seal up the other side this weekend if I can, depending on things. Now I'm waiting for circuits to come from Ralph before I can close too much stuff up. I can start playing with the pylon that goes into the starboard side. I can start playing with that, but I really want to make sure that this secondary hull shell is good and secured to the armature before I go too much of anything further, because all the weight of the rest of the ship depends on this. So that's my goal, that's my plan. You know how my plans work out. So until next week, when we'll be picking this right back up where we left off, you be good to each other, you be good to a stranger, it'll do your heart good. And we'll talk to you next time.